Okay, so the last thing that I want to show you for this week is how to actually add text in AutoCAD. Now, for your homework, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating what's called a title block. And essentially, this is the stamp that goes on every single one of your drawings. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it in a different file. So we're going to have a separate title block file for it. And we have to draw it in model space because, as I talked about earlier, only the objects that are model space can get XREF'd. And this will eventually be XREF'd into paper space. But in order for it to show up, okay, all the objects have to be in model space. Okay, so on the LMS, there's going to be an example of the title block with the dimensions that you should follow and what it should look like. So on that, what you're going to be doing is adding your name, okay, and you can come up with a firm name if you want. You can come up with a firm logo, okay, and I encourage you guys to have a lot of fun with this. But what we're also going to do is include spaces for the information that will go on each one of those sheets, okay. As I also noted on the, or what's also on the handout, is the layers that you're going to be using for this. So basically what I did is I set this up just using the AutoCAD's template, okay, its default template, and creating a drawing. I changed my units to architectural. You'll see that I don't have any other layers in here, but the layers that you will be using are on the handout, so refer to that in order to set up your layers. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by drawing a polyline at 11 by 17 inches. Okay, and you can also do a rectangle too as well. And what this is it sets the 11 by 17 sheet that we're going to be setting up everything on. Now, as I noted in the handout, that a lot of times a printer has a 1/4 inch non-plot area. So when we plot, we're technically not going to see this outer edge because that's going to be the edge of our sheet. Now, a 1/4 inch should be fine. Sometimes it's a half. It just varies from printer to printer, and that's something that you're going to have to figure out with the PDF creator that you're using. So I'm going to offset this rectangle by a 1/4 inch. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset that 3 inches, and that's going to define my area in which I'm going to have my firm information, that I'm going to have my drawing name, drawing title, all that information in it. And I'm just trimming it away, and that's going to be the information that's going to have all that. All of my drawings, okay, are actually going to sit in this area. So I don't want to take up too much space with this area, so I leave the majority of it for my drawing space there. So this is essentially what you should set up. Now what I want to do is I want to start to add some text. And what we're going to be using in this class in order to do our notes and everything is what's called annotative text. I'm not going to get into that this week, but what we're going to set up is non-annotative text, and that's the text that we're going to be using for our title block. We're going to be using annotative text for our drawings, so we're not going to get into that just yet, and we're not going to use the traditional system that AutoCAD, or that has been used in AutoCAD for that, and I'm going to explain why later on. But to begin with, what I want to do to introduce setting up a text style is to type in the command style. Okay, this is where we set up our text style, and this is where we're going to set up our non-annotative text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in new, or click on new, and I'm going to name it something that I will be able to recognize as my own text style. So I'm going to name it, you know, with my initials, and then I'm just going to say non-annotative text. Okay, and that's going to be my text style name. I'm going to hit OK, and that should be current. And what I want to do is I want to set up not only the height of it, okay, but the font name of it too as well, and the font style. Now, you want to stay away from anything that's too scripty and unreadable, so Wingdings, okay, is right out. If you look at the scripts, where's that script? You'll see that, you know, it gets a little too cutesy. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that our information that we have in our drawings is very clear, very concise, and very easy to read. So I'm going to stick with a style that I know is going to be like that. So you'll see that there is, you know, Arial's popular. If you use any of the Swiss types, those are popular. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the Calibri. So I'm going to go find it. You'll see that it's very simple. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the text height, okay? And now, because this is going to be full scale, Okay, this is our 11 by 17 sheet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, any general text should be 1/8 of an inch. It should not be any smaller than that because people, older people can't read it. And then important text should be 3/16. Some people have it as a quarter, but the thing is that takes up a lot of space. Okay, and you'll see that graphically it looks really big. So you don't want to take up all the space that you could have for something else with text that's too big, and graphically you want to make sure that it looks okay. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to say apply and close. And when I go to my annotate menu on my ribbon, okay, you'll see that it is my current text style. Okay, that's fine. And I can start to use it. Okay, so whatever text style you want to use, just make sure that it shows up in your annotated ribbon, okay, under your text style. So to type in text, there are two ways you can do it. One is single line text and one is multi-line text. And in later releases, you used to be able to convert them, single line into multi-line. But for some reason, they've taken away the commands in these later versions of Autocad. So what I do is I start off with multi-line text all the time. I don't even mess with single line text anymore. So if you type in, text, basically you can get single line text. Okay, but as I said, I just start with multi-line text. So I type in MT or mtext. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to create a window that I want to have my text in. So I'm going to define one corner and the other, okay, within that 3-inch space here. And I'm going to start to type. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that it's caps, because in the profession, everything should always be in caps. You'll never see, well, rarely will you ever see it in sentence case or in lowercase. So I'm going to turn my caps lock on, and I'm going to type in drawing, let's say title. And what that does is this essentially reserves the spot, and I just clicked out of it. This essentially reserves the spot to put in our name of our drawing title. So we're going to actually leave this blank for now in our title block, and with each sheet we're going to fill it in later as we get through this process. Now with text, what you can do is you can copy it. Okay, so I can copy it up and down. If I want it in a straight line, just make sure that my ortho is on. Okay, it also does come in if I want to, move it, I can do that. Okay, it has its little node snap, so you can always use that as a snap point for it. And I can scale it too. So for example, if this is going to be where I note my firm name or my, whatever designer information that I have here, if it's in something important that I want it to stand out, okay, what I can do is I can either scale it to the size that I want it to be, okay, or what I can do is I can give it a scale factor. So if I want it to be 1/4 inch, that's twice 1/8 inch, I can just use 2 as the scale factor. Okay, if I select it, you'll see that there are some arrows that are associated with it, and basically that just means that this is the area that's defining the window that I gave it. Okay, so if I don't want this on 2 levels like that, I can take this arrow and I can stretch it. Okay, to edit the information in it, okay, all I have to do is double click on it and I can change that information. Okay, and again, if I want to change this window, I can change it here and here using these polls if that text is selected. If it's not, then these blue arrows are the same thing, and I can do it that way. Okay, so I can edit this, scale, let's say drawing number, and again, for the information to include on it, you can look to the example that I have for the title block online that I'll post on the LMS. And also you'll see, and to reiterate, the layers that you need to assign these objects to. Okay, right now they're all on layer 0, but we need to create our title block layers. Those are all in the LMS too as well in the handout. Now there is a spelling, okay, that I encourage you to use. So if you go under annotate and you go to check spelling, it will check the spelling of your drawing. Okay, so just make sure that everything is all correct and spelled correctly, okay, because you start to get little things like a misspelling, and not only would it change, it could potentially change the meaning of the word, okay, but it also doesn't make you look maybe as confident as you want to be seen. Okay, so always make sure that you are spelling things correctly. Now, one other thing with the text is, yes, you can mirror text too as well. So if I want to use the mirror command, I can take this and I can mirror it. Now you'll see that what happens is that it just mirrors it, but it keeps it, you know, in basically in the way that you can still read it. Okay, what that is and what that setting is if you don't want it to do that, okay, if you want it to have what I call ambulance text, the backwards text, that is defined by what's called a system variable, okay, and that's a new type of command that I don't think we've run into at this point. And what this command does is it turns a setting on or off. So if I type in mirror text, okay, you'll notice that it'll ask me for a value and it says 0. 0 means off, 1 means on. So if 0 is there, that means that it's not going to mirror your text, okay, which is what it did from the last example. If you want it to mirror the text, then if you type in 1 and hit enter and you type in mirror again and you mirror it, you'll see that now it's actually backwards. So if you do run into this case, sometimes this is the default, especially in older versions of AutoCAD, and you don't want it to do something like this. All you have to do is change that system variable under the mirror text and you should be good to go.